All right, folks, I want to talk to you today about winter composting. If you're like me and you've got animals, you know that soiled hay and other kinds of manure and waste will build up. You get big piles over the winter and doesn't really decompose very well. So the technique I want to show you is about how I try to utilize some of that during the winter in some of my beds. Today I'll be working inside a greenhouse. Now that it's February and we got good layer of snow outside, I kind of shift this emphasis to the greenhouse, but in the fall I might be doing the same technique on some of my beds outside. But I try to basically take the material and get it straight into the bed and avoid like the transition to a compost pile, where I have to move it twice, once into the pile and then once out of the pile to the bed, and this technique, I just move it straight into the bed. So I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, folks, this is my little 3-season greenhouse. It's just kind of basically a lean-to built onto the back of the garage facing south. And it's February. These beds are, mostly used, of course, during the spring and summer and fall. And in order to kind of prep them for the planting season, I like to turn them and add compost directly into the soil. All right, folks, so I excavated a trench. I'm going to dump my compost in there, layer it a little bit with a little bit of soil, and then another bucket of compost, and then bury it up. It's pretty simple. So I do this, I just kind of, as I clean out my rabbit hutch, whenever I get a couple of buckets, I just, as part of that cleaning process from the rabbit hutch, I just bring it directly in here and bury it into the soil in the greenhouse. So I just dump it in there, spread it across the bottom of the trench, just like that. Looks like old hay and rabbit manure spread on the bottom of the trench. Then I push about a ½ inch of soil across there just to get a little bit of bacteria and fungus and all the good stuff. And then I use my next bucket. And repeat, So if you leave it just like this, you're going to end up with a great crop of grass coming up out of that because of all the hay that's in there. So you got two choices. You can either put a layer of cardboard on top, which is a good idea, or brown paper bags or newspaper, something like that. Or you can just make sure you put enough soil on top of it that the grass, when it germinates, any seeds that are in there can't get all the way up through the top. You're going to be weeding a little bit. If you do this technique, the cardboard will lower it. This is such a small space. I don't mind the weeding. It's pretty easy. So you can just lay some cardboard down on top of that grass or on top of the compost and then cover it with your soil. And you'll want to bring this up to where there's like 8 inches of soil on top of the cardboard. You don't have to use the cardboard. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. If I got extra cardboard I'm trying to, get rid of out of my garage, this is a great way of using it. But one thing I want to show you, I got this compost thermometer. I'm going to put it about 8 inches in the soil here. We'll give it just a second to calibrate. And you'll see that the soil over here where the miner's lettuce is 38 degrees. I'm going to move the thermometer over to where I set the bed. Probably did this 3 weeks ago, and we'll come back and check the temperature here in a minute, but it's already starting to rise. And you know, that's real important. That's real important because the decomposition of this material during the winter heats the greenhouse. Doesn't heat it a lot, but you know, over here where the soil's more compacted and there isn't fresh compost, it's 38 degrees. Over here behind me where I just put the thermometer, I measured it earlier, it's 48 degrees. It's 10-degree difference. Part of that is due because there's air pockets in there. So almost up at 48. It'll stabilize at 48. Might not seem like a big difference, but you know, the reality is this is a massive heat reservoir, these beds. You know, this is a heat source, and so while I got snow outside and frozen ground outside, I've got almost 50-degree soil in the greenhouse, and it irradiates through this upwards, allowing all this miner's lettuce to grow. So anyway, you know, the compost, you know, the winter composting accomplishes a couple of things. One, it helps you deal with your material over the winter rather than piling it up. You don't have to move it twice. It goes directly in the ground. You bury it. It turns into nutrients for the plants directly in the bed. If you happen to be in a greenhouse like this, it will actually generate heat. Not a lot of heat, but you know, it eventually can reach a certain point where your compost pile really kicks into high gear. You know, I don't really want this to get that hot in here with like a active compost pile that's cooking at 100 degrees or whatever. You know, because I'm trying to do a slow compost so that there's no nutrients are kind of going into the plants and just not cook it up so fast. But so anyway, next steps are basically I'm going to level this up to about the top of the wood, which is about 8 inches, and then I will repeat the process. I'll excavate out some of this miner's lettuce, plant it on top, and then I've got a spot to start digging my next trench. I need a little bit more soil to get this up to level, so I'm just going to transplant some of this miner's lettuce into the new spot. Just take a good scoop of soil with it. All right, so I've added another little section of compost, leveled this up to the wood, started excavating my next trench, and then I just will repeat this. I've already started down there, and I'll just repeat this till I get to the other end and have the whole bed aerated, plenty of good compost underneath, a big thick layer of soil on top. You can see that cardboard down there, and then it's probably closer to 12 inches of soil that I put on top. So anyway, this will result in a way that I only move my compost once, move it straight into the bed, and that saves me a lot of work right there. And then the bonus is that it heats the bed. The area that has a compost has been aerated is 48 degrees. The chunk of the bed that has not yet been aerated is 38 degrees. Still growing and doing its thing in the middle of February, but you know, an extra 10 degrees of temperature is like a big deal in this kind of a space. So this will take off. It's going to be a complete carpet of this miner's lettuce by the time couple more weeks, this stuff will just spread out, and we'll just keep eating our winter salads until it is springtime. Anyway, that's all there is to it. It's pretty intuitive. Move the compost once directly into the bed where you want it to be. Make sure you bury it deep enough that if there's any residual seeds, they don't make it to the top. Or you can put a layer of cardboard on there or something like that to help kind of reduce that. I like to do at least 8 inches of soil, even more if you have it. It will help heat your beds through the decomposition process, and will actually help heat your greenhouse. But it also, I think one of the things I like most about it is it makes like turning the beds and taking care of the animals not that big of a chore. You know, I just like a couple of buckets at a time. That's much better than like trying to do this as like some big, like I've got a massive pile and I need to like deal with it all, and you know, and it's going to take me all day. You know, this is just like, you know, I'm going to come out and check the animals, clean up their pen a little, bury a couple of buckets of compost, and call it good. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, we're just trying to show a few things that we're doing here on our little kind of mini homestead. So if you like the video, give us a like or subscribe, and we'll keep them coming. All right, take care.